In just a second, what I'm gonna do for both those of you who've joined us on Zoom, and thank you so much for coming, as well as those of you who are here in person, if I could get a sense of the number of people interested in giving public comment. And so as soon as I can look at it, what I'm gonna do for both those of you who've joined us on, I'll take a show of hands. Let's see, okay, so it looks like on the Zoom, interested in public comment is, I'm not sure how to say, Selah, Jody H. Okay, very good. And in the room, is anyone here hoping to provide public comment? Jasenia, is that right? Great. Anybody else interested in providing public comment? Got some hands here. Can I have a first name?
Carrie.
Carrie and
Anam.
Anam, thank you. Sorry, Mr.
Not at this point.
Okay, thank you. Any other people interested in providing public comment? Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have 5 times 3.
15.
I think we might be, do you want to do 2 minutes or 3 minutes of public comment time with 5 interested in speaking?
Let's say 3.
Copy that. Great, okay. And then I'll turn over the meeting to you. I'm sorry, Tamani. Thanks for watching the door for us.
No worries. So I want to welcome everyone who's in the room and also everybody who is online to this meeting of April 24th, Human Rights Commission. So we kind of have a special topic today. We are going to go over the Gaza, Palestine. We're going over that whole thing today. I just want to encourage everybody, first of all, please say your piece. I mean, we're here to listen, we're here to talk. So by all means, please do that. But I'd also like to encourage everyone to please be respectful. Like we can disagree without being disagreeable. That is the number one thing. It's perfectly fine to have a differing opinion. I personally feel that if we have different opinions, then that's an opportunity to learn and to grow. Because no one gets it right on the first try. There's always a chance for more information. So by all means, please respect everyone. Want to hold hard and fast to that. Number 3, as you guys might have heard, we're going to try to limit to 3 minutes. I know this is a very touching, a very personal subject for everyone. And I understand that, emotions are going to rise, they're going to fall. We might want to be a little passionate and we might want to go over, but if I am like waving at you or giving you a funny look or a funny face, it's probably because we're coming up on that whole 3-minute thing, so don't take it personal. I just want to make sure that everyone has a chance to speak. Okay, so.
Hamani, forgive me, I forgot, I also had somebody call and had notes that they'd like me to read, but it won't be 3 minutes.
Okay.
That'll be quick.
Okay, no worries. So with that being said, we would generally do introductions. Do we have time for that today?
I don't think so, if you want to get to the commission by 7.
So we're gonna skip the introductions. If you would like to know who we are and that sort of thing, then stick around. I'm always down for a conversation. If it's about food, I'm not going anywhere. So that's kind of how it goes.
Would it be helpful for people to know which one of us are commissioners? I don't.
Commissioners, can we wave something? So you know who our actual commissioners are. So then I guess from there, we're going to go ahead and skip forward to our public comments, our public comments. So.
And I wrote down the names, so if you like, I can call names and run a timeline, if that sounds good.
Why don't you go ahead and read the ones that you had first, and then we'll go.
Make sure it's right.
Yeah.
I've got Selah, Jody H, Yesenia, Carrie, and Ina, and then I have one from a Michael too.
That works. Did you want to read the one, the call-in?
Sure, would you like me to do that?
Yeah, do that, and then we'll go.
Great.
In the room.
All right, and I'm turning the timer on this one too, to be equitable. So I received a phone call from a community member named Michael Slater. Michael asked me to share that he feels it's not up to the Human Rights Commission's credibility to meet on Passover. He urges everyone to strongly consider avoiding weighing in to the overall topic and conversation as it's so far outside of the purview of the city of Salem. He said if you do weigh in, he believes it would require extensive consultation and public engagement process. He also observes that this is landing at a time with a lot of contentious issues and upcoming election facing our mayor and city council. Further, Michael went on to read the draft statement in our meeting packet that was drafted for consideration and comments. He said he's very concerned, makes no mention of the right to Israel to exist or be safe or defend itself. Nothing about the history of genocide against Jews or anti-Semitism. Nothing about the right of Israel to defend itself and protect itself. Michael says these omissions are very significant and undermine the credibility of any statement. Nothing about the attacks on Jewish civilians by Hamas. While many Jews would express displeasure at the government's current approach in Gaza, a statement of genocide would create significant problems for Jews in Salem if you go ahead and adopt it. And he said he sincerely hopes something like this doesn't pass on Passover like a vote tonight and then only able to talk about something that passed already next week. Mark, okay, we were within the time.
So I'm gonna go ahead and address that. So I just want everyone to keep in mind that tonight is further in the process. We are not hard, firm, like this is what we're gonna say. We have one more meeting for that. It's gonna be a week out from today. So for today, it's really just another opportunity for voices to be heard before we go forward. So I just wanted to make sure everyone knows that it's not like today is not a hard fast deadline. All right, with that being said, let's go ahead and go to the first name.
Okay, Selah, and I apologize if I said your name wrong.
Hi, it's Stella. Okay. Do I just like start whenever or?
Yeah, go ahead. I'll restart your timer. We've got 3 minutes for you.
Okay, thank you. So we live in a time where genocide is being broadcasted all over, and our world leaders are doing nothing about it. People who have power choose to stay complicit, and there are people in the streets being harassed, arrested, and assaulted for speaking up and doing what's right. People are spoon-fed to believe calling for an end to a genocide is anti-Semitism. People are so desensitized to what is happening. This level of dehumanization is called soul loss, a term widely used in indigenous communities. People have been trying to find medical reasoning for the atrocities we are witnessing, but what it is white supremacy and colonialism. This level of violence and soul loss is required for colonialism and white supremacy to triumph. In order for humanity to win and for Palestine to not just survive, but thrive, we need to denounce the apartheid settlers say Israel, denounce white supremacy, and denounce Zionism. It's very important to know Zionism is not Judaism, rather a political movement. The history of Israel is very violent and has built its existence on the colonization of the Palestinian people, with attempt to obliterate their history, their culture, and their land. This first happened in the Nakba in 1948, where villages were burnt, women were raped, and people were killed. The so-called Southern state Israel has been pushing the Palestinian people out into an open-air prison, and now we are complicit witnesses of them turning everything to rubble. The Palestinian people have the right to resist, and if Israel wins, they are not just and are not recognized as a state, they won't have that right. The Palestinian people will be annihilated, and we will have lost our humanity. That's why it's very important to follow the demands of the petition, urge the Biden administration and Congress to call for an immediate and permanent ceasefire and unrestricted entry of humanitarian assistance, call for the restoration of access to basic necessities like food, water, electricity, and medical services, denounce U.S. complicity in Israel military campaign in Gaza and West Bank, and call for an end to all U.S. military aid to Israel. Thank you. Call for an end to the apartheid and acts of genocide against the Palestinian people, which violates international law and affirms the Palestinians' right to resistance. And we need the city to affirm its commitment to support the safety of all of its residents and condemn anti-Arab racism, anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, any form of racism, xenophobia, and discrimination. I think it's really, really, really unfair to say people are anti-Semitic for for calling to an end to a genocide. Thank you.
Next, we have Jody H. And Jody, give me just a second. I'm struggling with my timer. Okay, I'm ready when you are.
I would like to start with a land acknowledgement before we begin. We acknowledge that the history of Oregon, of Salem, was fundamentally tied to the first colonial developments in the Willamette Valley of the Cayuse, Umatilla, Walla Walla peoples of the Confederates tribes of the Umatilla Indian Reservation. Only from this perspective can we proceed to have a conversation that is firmly rooted in stewardship and return of rights to the people the first peoples of this land. I would like to say that within the last week that we've talked in this commission's meeting, 88,000 buildings have been destroyed in Palestine. In Salem, we have 66,283 household units. So all of that would be bombed by now, including 20K more buildings. What I have seen in this past week, what a lot of us have seen, we've seen 300 bodies zip tied with their catheters in, with patients, doctors, children, elderly still in their hospital gowns, with their organs taken out, people being dug up. Like, we don't need another week to decide. We need to decide today. We needed to decide 6 months ago. We needed to decide last week. So in what world are we okay with this, where we cannot make a decision as adults on a human rights commissioner board that says that we focus on human rights? I mean, I'm disgusted, I'm angry, I'm saddened for the Palestinians in the room and the Palestinians across the diaspora who can't even get their people's bodies aren't even being respected. So, I mean, there's nothing more that I need to say. I think we need to make a decision today. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm ready when you are. Sorry, I'm not great on the timer, but I'm ready when you are.
Okay. Yeah, so there is a very obvious human rights violation going on in Palestine. They are international war crimes, and they have been decided by the UN that they are international war crimes that Israel is committing. Since being told to stop doing more genocide, they have done exponential amounts of genocide in that. And believe it or not, Oregon does have a role in this. Salem does have a role in this. Just to give you guys some information, in Oregon alone, taxpayers collectively send over $41 million to Israel. And did you know that Israel has universal healthcare, universal education, free, whereas here we are struggling with student debt, we are struggling with a library staying open, a public library. And also, the federal government sends money to individual organ companies that provide bombs to Israel. So that's also another thing. Since 1996, these companies have received more than $65 million in this foreign military financing, and organ exports have totaled more than 6.5 billion. Is anyone in the room familiar with Jewish Voice for Peace? Everybody on that side? I urge everyone at this table to look up that organization. It's a group of Jewish people that strongly stand against Zionism and the state of Israel's existence and recognize Palestine's existence and right to return to their homes. Thanks to British imperialism is the reason this is all happening. Basically, Great Britain gave this already colonized land of Palestine to whoever wanted to settle there that was Jewish. But you know, you didn't really have to be born Jewish or anything. You could just say you were Jewish to get the rights of the land. They're currently developing apartment buildings on top of the rubble of literal, like, people are still underneath the rubble and they're bulldozing it off and they're building their condos and they're selling them. And it's disgusting. So I don't know, if we really need more time, probably should have done it last week, like Jody said. Thank you.
Carrie next.
Yesterday was day 200. Over 34,000 Palestinians have been killed, with the real number including in the thousands of missing, buried under the rubble, estimated to be over 42,000, including 15,000 and more children and 10,000 and more women. 310 bodies were uncovered in mass graves at the Nasser hospital. Many found handcuffed, shot in the head, wearing prisoners' uniforms or stripped of their clothes. 3 Palestinians were killed in Israeli airstrikes in a residential building in a safe zone in Rafah. The IOF naval ships attacked Gaza's coast, targeting El Bala. I'm sorry, I do not know how to pronounce all these words. Nazareth and that camp, and the Zawada camps where people are taking refuge. 310 aid trucks entered Gaza yesterday, the most since October 7th, but still far below the expected 500 per day, furthering the starvation and illnesses that are happening amongst the survivors who are still trying to live. Israeli forces turned Gaza's only specialized cancer hospital into a military base, while only 11 out of 35 hospitals remain partially functional. The IOF is continuously bombing North Gaza after ordering evacuation of 50,000 Palestinians despite nowhere safe to go. I've lived the majority of my life in poverty, and I've been lucky enough to be able to go to college and have a job that now pays me enough that I paid more money in taxes this past year than I made annually in the first 25 years of my adult life. To know that those tax dollars are going to killing civilians is an atrocity.
1 more minute.
We need a permanent ceasefire. We needed it 6 months ago. And anything that myself or my colleagues and peers here can do to help push that along, we are ready and willing to do that. And thank you for listening today.
So I'll take my 3 minutes to remind everyone in this room, just like a lot of people have already mentioned, that just recently over 400 people are being found in mass graves as we speak. And this is since the Israeli occupation has pulled out of those areas. These bodies are dismembered, they're headless, they're without organs, their hands are zip-tied and executed point blank. Many of them are children, healthcare workers, really just everybody. And I also want to remind everyone here about the many, many international laws that have been broken by the settler state Israel. Hundreds of journalists have been targeted and killed, hundreds of medical staff, EMTs, foreign aid workers, mosques, hospitals, churches, and schools have been bombed, not including all of the residential areas that we have seen flattened. And just the over 40,000 killed so far. We are witnessing the conditions that the Palestinians are living through right now, that every day there is something new that comes up that we see them living through that we just cannot believe that this is real. It's unimaginable stuff. This does not account for the over 80 years of apartheid, the war crimes, the land theft, the murder, that the settler state has inflicted upon the Palestinians with the financial and political support of the US. That is to say that when we are asked why should Salem care and why should Salem make this resolution, it is because, like a lot of my peers here have said, it is because our tax dollars are going to this genocide. It is financially supporting this genocide. We are working and we know that our money is going there and we are witnessing these atrocities happen, this inhumanity happen. And so I think what we all really want to say to everybody here is that we really do care about the wording of this resolution. We really do care that Salem is a part of the over 100 cities that have passed this type of resolution. Thank you.
The public comment list.
Thank you guys all for speaking. At this time, before we move forward, I want to give anybody a chance who did not sign up that feels like they want to say something. Want to give them a shot at this point. So we'll go here, here, here.
Quick
Cool.
time check in if that's,
raise your hand.
Gotcha.
that
Yeah.
would be 4 times
worries.
3, which would be 12, and that'll put you after 7. And so just a time check, I know the commission talked about wanting a chance to talk as a commission, so just checking in with the group about that.
So I guess I'll open it up to the group really quick. Are you guys good with us go ahead and adding the other voices? And then maybe condensing our time or?
I would like to hear comments that we haven't heard.
I was gonna say I would like more time, but I'm.
Okay,
Like, Margaret, you spoke last time.
We
Margaret,
did, yeah.
I would like to hear from folks I haven't heard from before,
okay.
if possible. I'm not,
No worries.
and I would also like to respect the fact that we are here primarily to talk among commissioners, which is something that has already been communicated in advance. So, I think that's 2 of the 3.
Okay, well then if you're okay with,
Oh, okay.
okay, cool. So let's go ahead and add
I
those
was
two.
just, the Salem for Palestine said they needed people in the Zoom meeting, so I said.
Oh, okay.
Marashi, oh, thank you, very good.
And this guy in the glasses over here, forget him. Just forget him. We're not listening to you today.
So this would also be a new name to us as well.
Copy that. Marisha, we're welcoming a last public comment. If you haven't talked to this before, did you wish to talk tonight?
We might have to push that to the next so that we
Okay.
respect the time.
Great, okay, thank you. So Clifford? Great, okay. Give me a sec to get my timer to work.
And just for you guys reference, I am familiar with Clifford. That's just why I'm giving them.
I'm ready when you are, thank you.
Primarily, I want to speak to our basic humanity. I mean, that's what a Human Rights Commission is. You know, we form a body here. And though under the wing of the city, you know, I want to appeal to the fact that we're seeing a genocide in real time. But we've never seen anything like this before. You see it because as a result of colonialism, as others have spoken to, but an insistence that imperialist power exists. My family is Puerto Rican, and I know what it is to be a colony and to know and have to decide back and forth, are we going to be a state or do we get to be our own sovereign nation? At some point, I hope we get to experience that freedom, but I also know what it is to live under an American regime. And I do that even here at home. You know, we are seeing in real time, even as folks around the country are speaking against these atrocities. Children, you know, kids in college, professors, the American state is repressing those voices in defense of a foreign power who's executing a genocide. And so I'm brief here. If we cannot make a statement, then what is the purpose of a Human Rights Commission? Why are we gathered here to talk about this if we are not going to recognize this is the time that we say, this is a problem? And Salem here, we hear that pain, we are here with you, we want to see you through this, and we will not stand in support of any government, any state, any body that will inflict that pain. because we recognize we are humans. We would never want to endure that, nor should we want any others to endure that. Folks, like, this is why we're here. This is, if we can't make that
One more
statement, then I like I said, I don't know why we even bothered to gather here then. That's it.
My name is Steve Eichner, and I'm a longtime citizen of Salem. My wife and I, Marlene, belong to Chabad of Salem, Chabad Jewish Center. And we may be singing solo tonight in trying to defend Israel in, unfortunately, a just war. A war, not a genocide.
I'm sorry.
Let's
No,
remember
we
to
need-
be respectful. Yeah, we need him to have his time to talk.
Thank you. In all of the discussion that we've heard so far, there has not been one mention of Hamas. Hamas is the enemy, not Israel. And if we recognize Hamas, and it is basically a clone of ISIS, and we have basically made an undeclared war against ISIS, the United States. There were no serious humanitarian objections to that. After 9/11, Osama bin Laden took shelter in the caves of Tora Bora in Afghanistan. He went after the war. There were civilian casualties. It was seen as a cost of war. I am sick about what's happening in Gaza. But we have to remember the enemy is a proxy of Iran, along with Hezbollah and the Houthis again. And it is Iran that is directing this atrocity.
One more minute.
Hamas has had years to prepare. They've dug 400 miles of tunnels underneath Hamas. That's where they're hiding. They use their own people as human shields, and a very effective PR campaign to try and tell the world that a disgusting, absolutely inhumane attack on October 7th, that was the genocide. That was attacking children, beheading children because they were Jews. And
Can we pause for a second? Y'all, I really, I need y'all to just be respectful. He allowed you
That
to
is
speak.
not respectful. How is trying to defend genocide respectful?
I'd like to
Okay, hold
remind
on.
I
everyone.
can make and if I might
If you guys allow me to moderate, please.
because
I will.
Hold on, allow me to moderate, please. Okay, like I said at the beginning, it's gonna be hard. I get it. I understand. After we get done with the public conversations, I will tell you why it is I understand, but I also understand that people have to have a chance to speak. Like I said, you will not agree. Not everybody's gonna agree. I get that. But people have to have a chance to speak. This is the part of the job that is hard, because I do have to let everyone have their chance. So please.
the word genocide has been bandied about a lot tonight. Not Hamas, but genocide. I printed out a definition of genocide. Where did that go? The United Nations defines genocide as the deliberate and systematic destruction of an ethnic, racial, religious, or national group with the intent to kill members of this group, cause serious harm to them, or impose conditions of life that will bring about their physical destruction. The definition combined in Article 2, genocide is a crime committed with the intent to destroy.
I went 15 seconds over. Do you want me to offer more time?
We'll circle back. We'll circle back because everyone else had theirs cut at 3, so it's only fair.
We cut it 3:15.
Okay, so yeah, it's only fair that we cut.
Can I close with a question? Is that what's happening?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. It's
By
absolutely.
the,
what
by
it is.
the definition.
You
You want
just
videos?
described it
You want
verbatim.
videos of it?
Okay.
It's almost like you were describing what's going on.
Exactly what's going on.
It's
I don't think he
strange.
does- okay.
I don't think he deserves more attention than,
You're
he's
right.
already
Okay.
been popular.
You
I
guys-
don't know, he does.
You got-
For sure.
If we continue to have interruptions, we will make decisions like needing to conclude the conversation, and it's my hope that we can continue the
For
conversation.
sure.
And so but we can't have interruptions into the process. And if we need to remind multiple times, then we'll have to make a different choice. Amadi, we had a person named Jacob ask, he said he changed his mind and wondered if he could speak.
We're probably gonna have to push like we did with the other person because
Okay.
we did settle hard.
Copy that.
Can I also speak really quickly? I think just a minute.
I actually have to cut you because I told everyone else, I'm sorry. So now, thank everybody for the comments. Thank everybody for having the courage to speak. I feel very strongly about this because this is something that I've been watching since before most of you guys were born. I have cousins right now that are in Dimona. They are Israelites who immigrated to Israel because that's where they felt is their home, right? So I've been watching what's been going on in Israel for a long time, as far as Israel, Palestine, Gaza. So my heart's been hurting forever. Do I want to scream? Do I want to yell? Definitely. Do I want to stand up on the table and account everything that I felt is wrong or has been wronged? Definitely. My reason for saying that we will have tonight and then we will meet again in a week is because, once again, as the Human Rights Commission, everybody has the opportunity to speak. Now, there's people who are observing Passover. They can't be here or they're not here. They want to have their voices added. The commission or the city councilors also would like us to have their voices added. So in lieu of that, that is the reason why we are not making a firm right now that, and the commission also wanted to have a chance to speak. So it's not that we are not wanting to take action. That is not the case at all. The case of it is that, once again, human rights is everyone's rights. So everyone, whether we agree with their opinion or not, has the chance to speak. And that is all there is to it. There is no, we're not kicking the can down the road. It's not because we don't all feel strongly. We don't all hurt. It's not that I can't watch the news without crying, just like the most of everyone else. But I have to be fair. I must give everyone a chance to speak and discuss. It's the name of the game. We can yell and scream all we like for everyone. And that, in my opinion, when you only present one-sided argument, it's not justice. It's not how we get things done. So with that being said, I'm gonna go ahead and open it up to the commission and ask for comments and anything that you'd like to add.
Can we get a refresher on the statements that, or the wording that we wanted to be included that we voted on last meeting?
Yes, you can. Last meeting, the Human Rights Commission voted on phrases to include, that the work coming out of the commission will include a statement for an immediate and permanent ceasefire, that Israel, I put parentheses, leadership, understanding not all of the people, but the government, are in violation of international law, and that what is happening is genocide, and that would be part of, but not the entirety of the statement.
Thank you.
I'd also like to remind us that as the process has unfolded, mayor and council have tasked us with preparing language. And there were no parameters outside of that. And so those three items were agreed upon as will be included in whatever statement and whatever form the statement will take. Now, there are options available to us in terms of the nature of the statement, whether it's mayoral proclamation or a city resolution, which will be adopted by a majority vote by council. And, you know, this meeting tonight grew out of the need for the commission to really deliberate on those topics. And the third meeting, though perception may be otherwise, is not to stall that conversation. They came after direct feedback from other community members that they felt they could not participate in tonight's meeting, even though they could participate in last week's meeting, but I digress. And so that is the nature of the third conversation, and there will be language finalized by next Wednesday that will be given to mayor and council. So I just want everyone to be in understanding of that, that we're not abdicating our responsibility that has been tasked to us by mayor and council.
Not in the slightest, not in the slightest.
And Gretchen, when, we're meeting next Wednesday, when will council then take it up? Do you know?
I don't know.
Okay.
I am aware their calendar is full, that their meeting went till after 10 p.m., for example, on Monday. I don't know what and when they will grab it. I can certainly execute whatever the Human Rights Commission decides on that night. I can certainly get that to them the next morning. But then it'll be up to the mayor and council and city manager about timing on the agenda.
About what happens next?
Yeah.
I'm wondering if a good place to start would
I
be,
see.
Lisa was really great and kind of did a draft statement. So I'm wondering if a good place to start would be any commissioners' comments or feedback on that. Thank you, Lisa, for doing that.
Of course, I'd be happy to. I created 2 separate drafts with 2 different tones, and feel free to make changes. That's what computers are for, right?
So Lisa, thank you for writing this language. It is in the form of a proclamation. And my understanding is that we have not arrived at whether it will be a proclamation or a resolution.
That's correct.
And
Yeah, I think
so our mayor has expressed interest in language that is modeled after a release made by the Polk County Democrats. I'm going to read in full, because I'm not sure everyone had access to this information.
Okay.
Is that fair?
Sure, yeah, it's in the, if anybody got our email, it's one of the attachments to the email on tonight's meeting.
Did everyone read this statement?
No. You're more than
I'm
welcome
gonna
to
read it.
Yeah, not to
It's short
stop you,
enough.
but just to clarify, if you're wondering if it's the same one.
I've been told my voice is grating, but I'll try to get past
Yeah.
it. As Oregonians and Democrats, you can read it in full here. We are dedicated to a better world, a world founded on peace and unity and equity and genuine democracy for all. We unequivocally denounce the atrocities, terrorism, and violence of Hamas, understanding that there can never be any justification for such actions against civilians, especially now that it is widely known that they especially targeted infants and children. At the same time, we recognize that Hamas and Palestine are not the same thing, and that the Palestinian people have suffered due to the actions of the Israeli government. The majority of the thousands of dead are innocent Palestinians and Israeli civilians who deserve to live long, happy, and full lives, and we mourn them all. We firmly stand for peace, justice, and freedom for all, recognizing the legitimate aspirations of both Israeli and Palestinian people. In the days ahead, we remain committed to working together as allies and friends to prevent human suffering and environmental damage. Establishing humanitarian corridors, stop spillover fighting in nearby nations, support Israeli and Palestinian people in efforts to create the conditions necessary for peace. Our goal is a world where dialogue and cooperation prevail, and where the voices of all people, regardless of their background, are heard and respected, and where anti-Semitism and Islamophobia are not part of our everyday lives. We believe that there is a path forward for peaceful, equitable, democratic solutions rooted in shared values, empathy, and humanity. Now, this is the statement that our mayor has expressed interest, the type of statement that he's expressed interest in giving. And I think that is not what we want him to say. And in fact, the proclamation, no matter what language comes, whether in the form of proclamation or in a resolution, the three things he doesn't mention, we are mentioning already. And so I would encourage our mayor to become awake to the realities that are unfolding. And I wanted to open up the possibility, however, of, and I see Kelsey's hand, of having both a mayoral proclamation and a resolution. If the mayor would like to make a statement on his own, fine. I would prefer that he have at least something approximating reality that he's interested in reviewing. And I would like to see that in addition to a city council resolution, so that we can have our elected leaders show who they are in a form of a vote. So I think I would open up, given that we were deciding to do the two, I'd like to open up to my colleagues whether there is interest in having both for the reasons I have just outlined. That is to say, something like Lisa's statement as a mayoral proclamation in some form or another, in addition to a resolution that has yet to be drafted.
I feel like we should say what we want to say. Like what we feel that we need to say is what we should say and send it over. I mean, if he chooses to use it or use it as a proclamation or however he chooses to use it, then that's on him. But we need to speak and we need to speak definitively.
Well, the difference, Lottie, is
We want to let Lisa jump in.
yeah,
Just a reminder.
the difference is the mayor asked us, but only after Councilor Nishioka had initiated a process and Councilor Stapleton had also initiated a process. And so it seems to me that our Salem community is looking to our elected leaders to make a statement of value. And I am confident the mayor can do as he pleases. And I think that that isn't good enough. I think that we have to have our elected leaders come out on this issue. And I think it matters to prompt both of those processes because these are the people we've elected to make decisions on our behalf. And so I'm sorry, Lisa, go ahead.
That's okay. Sorry, Gretchen, I was going to ask you if you could walk us through the process of a resolution. What's involved with that?
Yes, you bet. A resolution is something that goes onto the agenda for a vote by the 8 council members plus the mayor. So the 9 of them have an opportunity to vote. And in order for it to pass, it requires a majority. So 5 people would need to vote yes for it to pass. That's as opposed to a proclamation, which is a statement that there's not a vote taken on it. It's a mayoral proclamation or an expression of a perspective. That's not a vote. There's maybe a couple of other small nuances to it, but sometimes like a resolution will contain a statement like we resolve to, and there could be action items like send a message to congressional leaders, for example. A proclamation might lay out views and values and things. So there sometimes are differences like that as well. But the big difference is vote versus proclaim.
Thank you, Gretchen. Appreciate that. And I think that's what I was thinking last week, and why I wrote this as a proclamation. I didn't think we had finalized our decision, is because of expediency. A proclamation, if the council's agendas are full, we don't know when a resolution would be brought forward. But a proclamation would not require that. So just my thoughts. Open to discussion.
I want to bring in, I see Laura's on. Laura, just kind of wanted to get your thoughts, ideas, comments, questions, concerns.
Well, I have a lot of thoughts. But I think that my overriding thought is that we have a commitment to the residents of Salem, and And, you know, I see that there's, you know, rising hate crimes against Islamic folks. You know, there's a rise in anti-Semitism, there's a rise in all of those things, and I think that that is a point that, I mean, we have to declare all life precious. And we have to unequivocally stand for all of the residents of Salem, not, you know, come down on any one side, of course. And I also agree that we, you know, we have to denounce atrocities and those type of things. I mean, we have to be the voice of the of all of the residents of Salem. That's my overriding thought going through this.
Thank you, Laura. I also want to ask Greg. Go ahead. Sound
McKinnon's
on.
also.
Here because we're all concerned.
Greg?
Can't hear you, Greg.
Greg, we actually can't hear you. It's pretty muffled. Do you have any adjustments you could make?
Let me try. Maybe I need to speak up a little bit. Does that help?
That works. Thank you for projecting.
I haven't exercised my voice much today, so. But anyway, I just want to thank everybody for particularly the emotion that's involved in the room there. I wish I could be there actually, but I'm having some mobility issues right now. But I'm Native American, and my people feel and know about exploitation and colonization. I lived through the trauma that exists within my ancestry and my family. You know, my parents were boarding school kids and forcibly removed from their parents because there was a dominant society that thought they were better off becoming white people. So I mean, so there's all those things mixed in there. So I have some very particular emotions around indigenous people, particularly where there's colonization and exploitation. Genocide, I mean, we can't ever water that down. I mean, how can you say it gently? And the subject matter itself just can't be a political, is it a resolution or is it a proclamation? I mean, we either stand you know, our ground, and if we really have a purpose, that purpose is to make the bold statements, and really, if we're about the fair treatment of everybody, you have to examine who is at risk here, where is the damage being done. And you know, the part that always enters my mind is that if it's Hamas, then I know how a radical group, there was ISIS and other Muslim groups before that were radically, from a political standpoint, and were violent. But when you talk about the mass destruction and those other things, the carnage, that's not acceptable. I mean, no matter what group it is, hate and violence is not acceptable. And so, is this a political football? No, this is about humanity. We're the Human Rights Commission, and if we don't have that interconnection, that we're all in my Dakota language, we say Matakoya Oyasin. We are all related, and that's that part that seems to be lost when politics, power and authority, financial gain, land, you know, the land grab, whatever those things are all obstructing our ability to all realize that we're all common. And so, yeah, there's emotions. I come from a background, a family where my relatives a generation ago were involved with the American Indian movement. We armed ourselves at Wounded Knee and so forth, but I mean, that didn't answer anything, but it did make a statement. It made a difference. So all I'm saying is I agree with everybody on the topics that we're discussing, and the emotions are high, but somehow through all that, we need to make sure if we're an arm of the city as a commission, that our voices be heard and not mitigated or watered down. We need to make a firm statement. If they don't accept the statement we make, we've made our stand. And that's, who knows what the outcome will be. If it's a resolution or a proclamation, we need to stand behind what we really believe and what our intent is as a Human Rights Commission. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Greg.
Here, here.
And we're gonna hit Kate, and then Laura has her hand up. So Kate, go ahead.
Sure. Greg, great to meet you. First time I've met you. Thank you. This is a really complex conversation, and thank you to everybody who spoke. I know that it's hard, but thank you for speaking and being vulnerable and brave in the conversation. So I've been thinking about it a lot, and I guess one of the things I've been contemplating is just what is the, and I don't want to stir the pot, I really don't, but within the commission itself, what is my question is a statement enough even? Is it enough, or is it performative in itself? And I honestly don't know. You know, I think if it does protect our residents, if it protects people from hate crimes, then yes, that would be enough, right? If it protects people, that's enough within our city. But if it is just words and the words aren't meaningful enough to make a difference, and or we as a city don't take it to the next level to push our federal senators, you know, Wyden and Markley to do something, to take action, then, you know, does it actually make an impact? So I've kind of been struggling with this myself, I'll be honest. And I know actually Senator Markley will be here in Salem Friday. And so that's another chance to have the conversation directly with our senators. But personally, myself, I think we've heard some strong statements from commissioners as well. I personally believe strong language is needed. You know, I think we need to make I'm a communications person. Language is important, it's impactful. I think we need to call it what it is, right? If people are being killed and slaughtered, and it's very clear, follow journalists who are there on the ground, which I do on Instagram. I'm seeing it first person. That's the power of social media. There is no in between. There's no person in between anymore. It is so hard to watch. It's so hard to see, and it's so personal. And so personally, I do believe strong language is needed. At the same time, Hamadi, thank you so much for just leading this conversation in such a respectful way. I also do believe, as somebody who has friends who are Muslim from Egypt, from Saudi Arabia, from Iran, from Afghanistan, right? Like I have friends from all over the world, and I have friends and coworkers who are Israeli. I also do believe that we should give people the opportunity to have a conversation when it is not during Passover. And so I also agree that we should continue the conversation next week. My personal beliefs, though, would be that I would like to use the strong language of genocide. And I also like, Lisa, I think you did a great job on the draft itself. So thank you for starting that conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kate. What is our time frame for today?
You have until 8 o'clock is what's planned, so you've got another half an hour.
I'm gonna ask the commissions, anybody else want to add anything? We did have a question in the room that I acknowledged that I wanted to get to. If it was a question, if you were gonna make a
It's not really-
statement, that's
It's
different.
not really a question, well, I guess it is. I was just gonna ask if, I understand that there's additional voices that wanna be heard, and that's why we're meeting next week. I was wondering if anyone considered changing the venue to someplace larger where we can accommodate all those people.
I'm thinking about that too, yeah. Is that okay with you all? Yeah,
Yeah,
okay,
for sure.
yeah, I'm having
For
the same thought. I don't know why I didn't do it for tonight. I apologize.
We are kind of close. I'm glad I showered. That's all.
Yeah, I wanna kind of echo what Joaquin was saying, about the statement that the mayor is, wanting to kind of use that language, and I want to say I will be severely disappointed if that's the direction that he chooses to go. Specifically highlighting there was no use of the word genocide, no mention of the US money being used in this. The line, the majority of the thousands of dead are innocent Palestinian and Israeli civilians, not acknowledging that 35,000 plus of those people are Palestinians. And then also kind of identifying like our scope of influence, but as like a human rights commission. Oh no, Gretchen.
Oh, thank you.
Our scope as a commission.
Thank you.
Yeah, we are not like a decision-making power. We can give our statement to the mayor, and he can do what he wants with that. But then also, the reason that we are not mentioning Hamas is because we as the US and taxpayers are not giving money to Hamas. We are not giving money to them. We are giving money to Israel and the Israeli government and the IDF. That is why we are, when we were making a statement and talking about that, why we are focusing on the Israeli occupation and not just Hamas.
Thank you, Kelsey. And I know, Kate, this isn't what your intention was, and I'm not saying you're saying this, and I think we have to make a statement. I think it's the bare minimum. That is our obligation, in addition to being asked to do it. And in the spirit of that, to what Greg was saying, and forgive me, Carrie?
Yes.
Greg was attesting to scope, and Carrie was attesting to the number of days it's been, which is 201
today.
as of right now. And I'd like to draw the commissioner's attention to the Seattle resolution, which is dated to November 21st of last year. They didn't call it genocide then, they called it onslaught or slaughter, I think. And the figures that they had available to them most recently was 14,000 dead and 10 Palestinians and 10,000 bombs dropped. I checked the Gazan Ministry of Health before coming here. 200 days in. And I talked last meeting about just naming things. I don't think we need convincing of this, but just to name things for what they are. 42,000 dead. 14,778 children injured. 77,143 adults injured. 5,000 Gazans detained. 7,000 missing or unaccounted for. 6,000 mothers killed. 19,000 children orphaned. 90% of schools, buildings destroyed. All universities gone. 80% of commercial facilities gone. 83% of ground well water destroyed. 267 places of worship annihilated. 200 archaeological and heritage sites destroyed. 140 journalists killed, not to mention the doctors. 75,000 tons of explosives dropped, which is more than we dropped in Iraq in 8 years. 22.9 million tons of hazardous debris, and half of all tree cover and farmland gone. Now, the precondition to genocide is intent. There you have it. And I say that just to again ground us on what matters. It isn't, is it politics whether to make a statement? It's that this is happening. You know, we see the university protests happening. It's been an emotional week for me. I went to Yale. I have friends who've been arrested. You know, things are happening, and I love the line, which is, do you know anything about American university students being arrested? That they discovered mass grave and young Kootenays, you know, that is the response that I'm feeling right now. And so I'd like to get back to the language, if we don't mind. Which leads me to a question to you, Gretchen, which is, how do we go about articulating a resolution? Because I feel, you know, I'd like to discuss, and we have next week to discuss it too. I think, you know, in terms of just all we have to get to, I think that actually might be best. But you know, we have Lisa's language.
We do.
For the proclamation.
We do.
And then we don't have a draft of a resolution. And when I'm looking at resolutions from the city of Eugene, the city of Seattle, you know, it's the whereas, therefore sorts of language that we discussed last week. And I think, you know, we talked about naming it for what it is, unambiguously a genocide. Naming it additionally for what it is, which is in violation of so many international laws, and calling for an immediate and permanent ceasefire. See how I got through it without stumbling after 2 hours?
Good job.
Kate said, well, where does this materialize? I think if we're in the mood of naming things we'd like to see in the resolution, I'd like to name a few. Naming the Biden-Harris administration in particular on the immediate call for ceasefire. Naming our city of Salem City Council to ask, as part of their action items, we resolve to ask the members of the Oregon's federal delegation to use the platform provided by their office to advocate for peaceful diplomatic measures that result in immediate and long-term reduction of violence and bloodshed. I think that component has to be included in some form or another to kind of answer Kate's call, which is, you know, where do we go from here next? You know, we're not elected leaders, but you know, we're in a position to facilitate language that's real. And, you know, part of telegraphing values and morals in Salem is just to acknowledge, are we living in reality? Anyways. And then in addition to that, the need for unrestricted humanitarian aid and the restoration to access to basic necessities. I guess this is maybe alluded to, but we should go ahead and name it too, denouncing our complicitness as US taxpayers in the genocide. I would be interested in naming Salem-specific tax dollar amounts that contribute to the genocide. Someone mentioned Oregon. Sure. Yeah, thank you. And then I would love to know Salem in particular. Asking for not just naming our complicitness, but also to ask to end military aid to Israel, at least in a way. Anyway, yeah. And then pushing for a free and liberated Palestine.
Pushing for what?
Free and liberated Palestine. Those would be recommendations I'd like to see added in addition to the 3 items we've already agreed are going to be in the language.
I see. Can I just say, that just throwing it here, like, we have what Lisa wrote. But I would not feel right if we did not have our statement that made sure that included everything that Joaquin was just talking about. Some issues that you brought up, some that I heard over here. Like, I feel like it would be a waste of time if we didn't really say everything that needs to be said, regardless of what anyone else is gonna say, what they're gonna use, how it's gonna impact, because that would be pointless. I mean, it would just be pointless. So I don't know how the other commissioners feel about that. That's where I'm sitting with it, so.
So could you be more specific, Amanda? Are you talking about amending Lisa's statement, or, because I was speaking more to drafting resolution language.
That's what I'm thinking, is
Okay.
we have Lisa's statement, which I love, don't get me wrong. So that one's like a proclamation.
Especially the empathetic tone one, if
Yeah.
we can be specific in which version. Sorry, Amanda, go ahead.
So that would be like our proclamation, yet we have a resolution. Does that make sense?
I think Joaquin had proposed sending both to the mayor.
That's what
Is that
that's
correct?
right.
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking.
And if he wants to give the whole kind of Democrats, fine.
But this is what, yes. Yes. Any thoughts on Lisa's proclamation other than it looks really great? The empathetic. That word?
Empathetic.
Yep.
Empathetic, good old Grammarly. That's my secret.
Hamadi, if I may, I know it's a intense issue. Sometimes when groups begin to develop a consensus and they get clear towards a perspective, it can be difficult for commissioners who might be in the minority to share perspective, and you can have that kind of group perspective take hold. And I just wanted to affirm everyone's openness to hearing alternative points of view from the commission. And Taylor, I know you've got your hand up. The commission during this period wanted to talk as a commission. So I know Hamadi sees your hand, but I just wanted to make sure in case any commissioners had perspectives that they wanted to feel
So
to share.
in the spirit of that, since we are meeting next Wednesday, can these be items that we come prepared to vote on by the end of next Wednesday? Does that make sense?
Yes.
So that the items that I've just enumerated, for example, and however many more come, are drafted in some way to then receive final scrutiny next Wednesday, with the intention of leaving next Wednesday with a recommendation to council and mayor.
Yes.
And that would also, by not voting on it tonight, would maybe lend itself to folks, commissioners included, who aren't here tonight, to come next Wednesday and continue the conversation.
It would create, that's certainly a choice and an option you can make. I think a counter perspective might be if someone wanted to come and share a perspective, they may worry that it won't have an opportunity to influence the document. And, so that's just something to keep in mind as well. To have an open mind about what you might hear next week.
I was gonna ask, would it be possible to have something that whatever's prepared would be able to go out to the members of the public before the meeting so that they could comment on pieces of it?
We can certainly do that.
Because my
the debate with something like that is if we put out a draft that the commission hasn't voted on, it can be easily misunderstood as, oh, this is the commission's statement, but what if it's not, and it doesn't reflect how you all feel? That's the downside.
Well, we already did that.
Not like that. Well,
It's in the minutes.
it's in the minutes,
That's
but
what I'm
it's
saying.
not like distributed far and wide. It's distributed to anybody who's asked and requested. It's certainly out
Is
in
that
the
what you're
public
asking for?
fodder.
Well, my concern, and I appreciate everyone's comments. I think a statement is appropriate. I think language is important. And my concern is we've heard from members of this community that certain things may cause harm to them. And I just want to be mindful of that. I don't want to put something out without getting feedback about what aspects of that might be harmful to people who live in Salem. But I don't know the best way to go about doing that in the time that we have. I'm looking back at our, our powers and duties of the commission, and it's, promote harmonious intergroup relations within the city, balancing the cooperation of various racial, religious, and nationality groups, business, community, labor, government organizations, fraternal and benevolent or associations, educational and other groups. Examine sources of tension, practices of discrimination, I just want to make sure that we're keeping our powers in mind as we're moving ahead. I want to move ahead. I just want to make sure we're doing it carefully and thoughtfully.
There's one thing that I was actually thinking is that, and this goes out for anyone in the room, anybody online, or your cousin, brother's roommate, whoever. If you feel like you can't say what you need to say in here, you don't feel comfortable, you don't feel heard, I would encourage any of you to please reach out to me directly. I can provide that information if needed, either me or any of the other commission members who would want to take that on. Reach out to me directly. Let's have a conversation if you feel like you want to say something and it's not getting out there. So that way when we come together, because next week, I really don't like, next week for me should be it. Like after the end of next week's meeting, we are going forward. That is it. So before that happens, if someone feels like they're not being heard, then I would encourage you to have that conversation with me if you don't feel like doing it out in open forum.
Is your contact information in the material that we got?
I can provide you.
I can help with that. Yeah, I don't think it is.
No way, I'm hidden, man. It's not finding me. But I would definitely encourage people to do that by all means.
Would a good step forward be like, we have Lisa's draft. If you are interested in any changes for that or your own, draft it. And then if you want to write a resolution, or does anyone want to write a resolution? Like, is that something like someone wants to undertake?
Well, can I ask a clarifying question? Okay, I'm going to anyways. So I have a sense, not being intimately familiar with the Seattle City Charter, that they are referencing language in their code. So having not written a lot of resolutions in the past, I suspect that there are things in our code, maybe even chapter 97 in particular, that we would reference to form. It's the whereas bits.
Yeah.
Is that true?
Yes, and traditionally, our legal department helps with drafting from that standpoint. So I think one approach would be to lay in the content, the phrases that you feel is important to include, and then it's always with resolutions, a partnership with the legal department to go and reference the proper Salem Revised Code pieces. We don't need to do that part.
So I know you're not a lawyer, but here in Seattle, they've named specific things. They even cite the Wall Street Journal, which precedent for that here in Salem?
I don't know. Not that I've seen, but not that I don't recall a resolution citing a media source before, but that doesn't mean it's not possible. And I'm not a lawyer.
I'm just curious in terms of what it could look like. So my question to my colleagues would be, having now reviewed these resolutions, one from Eugene, one from Seattle, one from Multnomah County, are there any other things that really stand out? Or any language we'd like to borrow from Lisa's draft, good as it is, to a resolution? I can think of a few, but I'll let others comment.
I got nothing, so.
The systemic and deliberate attempt to erase the Palestinian people. I like that added language from the condemning the genocide.
Online? don't know if you heard Kelsey or not. I barely did, but I also can't hear anything. So.
I didn't, that statement.
I was muted. I was muted. Kelsey, are you saying to take out that statement?
No, I'm saying I liked it.
Okay.
Greg, I'm sorry, we couldn't hear you.
I'll speak up again. So I think, you know, what the other entities, city of Seattle or whoever, I'm sure they've gone through the same process we have. So I don't think we have to reinvent the wheel too much, but I think the thoughts we have in the room today need to be brought into whatever we move forward with. The statement in general and the ones that I've looked at are very similar. And so that ground has been broken as far as how a political entity or a city or a government like Salem may state that case. But I just guard against seeing it adopted in a way where it's watered down and doesn't really say what we want to say. That's something that that's still to come, but that's something we need to guard against, that the opinions that were brought into this room and the work that has already been done on our part, that's definitely merged into what is probably that boilerplate of what other governments are saying right now. And it's all pretty similar. It's just a matter of how you put those words together. So that's kind of my piece on that.
Thank you, Greg.
Thank you, Greg. Laura?
To Greg's point about the, not reinventing the wheel, I have a preference towards the City of Seattle's resolution as a kind of a base to work from. I appreciate that they really, I feel like they really called out the violence, and they really talked about really what it is. I mean, we can add in the words that we have chosen that we want to make sure are in there, like calling it a genocide. But I do feel like all the points that are important from my perspective are in that their resolution, particularly the language they use about their strong language against acts of hate, and I appreciate that. So that's my opinion.
I would also like to add a sentence or a statement, bringing it back to the people of Salem as well. I mean, saying all the things that we want to say, but also tying it back to.
Absolutely. And one other thing that I think is important, is there a way, I think it's important that we call out the fact that the focus on the Israeli government follows our tax dollars, right? So I think it's worth calling that out.
Thank you, guys. Thank you all. We have about 5 minutes left. So, Yesenia brought some of these. So if you have not seen it, some of the information that she was speaking of is in here. Please make sure you take one. Commissioners, this goes. Again, we will be meeting again next week. And then proceeding forward from there.
Okay.
So thank you guys all for speaking. Thank you guys all for being here.
Oh, can I make a quick off-topic announcement? Sorry. So our community engagement survey is now live, not community engagement, community belonging. And Human Rights Commission members, there's in-person opportunities, including one this Sunday from 3 to 4 that we're seeking if someone could join. There's a student available from Western and we're hoping a Human Rights Commission person, so check your email, I sent that out just a little bit before the meeting. I don't remember, but it's in the email, and it's Sunday from 3 to 4 p.m. at a faith-based organization in Northeast Salem, is what it is, but there's more details in your email. Thanks for letting me share that. But yeah, I can, what's going on? Okay. Thank you, Hamadi, so much. And then I have a request for your contact information, Hamadi, and I want to make sure